Some stories don't end. They pause. They leave things unresolved. This is one of those stories. The building closed every night at 10. It didn't matter who was still inside. At precisely 10 o'clock, the lights dimmed to their after-hours setting. Elevators returned to the ground floor, and magnetic locks engaged in sequence, floor by floor. Daniel liked that part. He worked maintenance for a municipal office building most people forgot existed. 6 floors, no public-facing departments, just records, archives, and administrative overflow from offices that had long since moved on. There were no windows in the stairwells, and no mirrors in the hallways. Daniel had once asked why. No one had answered. Most nights, his job involved replacing bulbs, resetting sensors, and responding to automated alerts that turned out to be nothing. The building was old, but predictable. Until the 6th floor stopped behaving the way it was supposed to. The work order arrived at 9:42 p.m. Light flickering, possible wiring issue, 6th floor. Daniel stared at the screen longer than necessary. The 6th floor was technically active, but no one worked there anymore. Its departments had been dissolved years ago. The lights were on timers. There shouldn't have been any reports. Still, the system had flagged the issue as persistent. He gathered his tools and took the elevator up. The ride was smooth and silent. The hum of the cables steady, reassuring. When the doors opened, the 6th floor greeted him exactly as it always had. Beige walls, low carpet, fluorescent lights. Daniel stepped out and stopped. The hallway felt longer. Not wider, not distorted, just longer. He couldn't have explained how he knew. The spacing of the lights was the same, the proportions unchanged, but the far end of the corridor sat farther away than memory allowed. He frowned and took another step, then another. The distance didn't close. Daniel checked the floor plan on his phone. 6th floor, 22 rooms, ends in a locked storage closet. He looked up. The hallway ended in a door. Not the storage closet, a door that wasn't on the plan. It was unremarkable. Off-white paint, metal handle, no signage. It looked like it had always been there. That was the problem. Daniel walked toward it slowly. His footsteps sounded muted, as if the carpet were thicker than usual. He counted his steps without realizing why. 32. That wasn't right. He reached the door and hesitated. The handle radiated cold, sharp enough to feel through his glove. Daniel turned around. The elevator was gone. Not closed, not dark, gone. In its place, the hallway extended behind him, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly lit, that entirely unfamiliar. No exit signs, no stairwell doors, just corridor. A faint buzzing filled the air, low, constant, like electricity running through something that wasn't meant to carry it. "This isn't funny," Daniel said quietly. His voice sounded smaller here. He walked back the way he'd come, his pace quickened. The hallway did not change. When he turned again, the door waited for him. Patient. Daniel approached it and opened it. The room beyond was larger than it should have been. No windows, no furniture, just rows of filing cabinets stretching farther back than the hallway should allow. Every drawer stood open. Folders sagged inside them, yellowed with age. Dates written in fading ink spanned decades. Daniel stepped inside. The door closed behind him. Soft. Final. He pulled a folder at random. Inside were maintenance logs. His name appeared at the top. Entries he remembered, entries he didn't. Jobs logged on nights he was certain he hadn't worked. Repairs listed in areas of the building he had never accessed. The handwriting looked like his, almost. Some pages were stamped "After Hours" in faded red ink. Others bore a different mark, "Unresolved." At the back of the folder was a single typed sheet. Subject: exhibits compliance, minimal resistance, no external witnesses. Daniel dropped the folder. He backed away, bumping into another cabinet. And then he noticed something else. The room had changed. Where there had been 4 rows of cabinets, there were now 6. The buzzing deepened. Daniel searched for the door he'd entered through. It wasn't there. Instead, another door stood on the opposite wall. A sign was mounted above it, Room 6F-23. There was no Room 23. Below the sign, the paint had been scratched away. Someone had carved a sentence into the surface, "Still assigned." Daniel opened the door. The hallway beyond looked normal, short, correct. He stepped through without hesitation. Behind him, the door closed. The sign was gone. Room numbers lined the walls again. 6F18, 6F19, 6F20. At the far end, the elevator doors stood open. Daniel didn't look back. He rode down alone, watching the numbers descend. For a moment, he thought they paused at 6, but when he blinked, they continued as normal. In the lobby, the security desk was empty. The logbook lay open. Tonight's date was already written. So was a name. Not his. Below it, in smaller handwriting, were the words, "Did not exit." Daniel clocked out early. He never returned. Human Resources marked him as unreachable. His access badge was deactivated, his locker cleared and reassigned. Officially, nothing had happened. The building continued to close every night at 10. Weeks later, another maintenance request appeared. Light flickering, possible wiring issue, 6th floor. The new technician arrived just before closing. He stepped off the elevator and paused. The hallway felt longer than it should have been. At the far end, a door waited. The sign above it read, Room 6F-23. Below the number, someone had scratched a familiar sentence into the paint. He never left.
Some stories remain unfinished, not because they lack answers, but because the answers were never found. This was one of them. If this story stayed with you, you may find others waiting